Hello, hello. Hopefully I am live. David Dawei here. It is Friday, June 14th, 2024. Can you believe it? Already half of the year gone by, 2024. In 5 months, we will have elected a president. At least that's the plan. Let me make sure this thing is working. Well, I can tell you, I have two old computers. Now I'm on the Mac tonight because I have some videos on iMovie that I want to show. So hopefully the volume is okay on this. Hopefully I'm coming through okay, because I think the microphone on this is starting to go. So if anybody's there, then you can let me know. But listen, I'm going to dive right into it. This show is titled, What Do You Want to Talk About? So since it's a Friday night, I thought that some people might have some questions, or there's some things that you want to discuss, something that's on your mind. If so, oh, that reminds me. Let me put into the comments, if you want to come on and join me, then in the chat, I have added that. And hopefully that came through. Okay, let me get right into it. The years, as I get older, the years melt together. So that's one reason why I make videos, so I can go back and say, oh, it was that day, that month, that year. Otherwise, I'm like, let's see, usually I have to think of events that remind me. But many, many years ago, when I started my business and I was working on the shop floor building stuff, because at the beginning, it was just me and one other guy I hired. And so this computer, see what I mean? I gave this computer an order and it's only coming up now. Unbelievable. So what was I saying? So what I used to like to do is I used to like to put music on or podcasts. And I talk about this in my book actually as well. But one of the podcasts I used to listen to regularly was True News, Rick Wiles, when he just started up his ministry. Louis, how you doing, buddy? Hey, if you want to come on tonight, tonight's the night. So, he was on YouTube for a long time, and like Greg Hunter and a bunch of others, YouTube basically deplatformed all these people. And it's something that always made me a little wary of doing anything online and relying on it as a business, because, back then, the cost of having your own website, your own platform, it was very prohibitive. Today, it's reasonable, I think, depending on how much information you're storing. I mean, if you're doing videos and large files, then it can get pricey because they charge you by storage and by streaming. So, all right, first thing I'm going to show you. So the reason I talked about Rick Wiles is, so he's gone private. He moved to Florida, took his website private, and turned it into a membership or subscription thing like everybody's doing these days. And to be quite honest with you, I've done that with some people, but I just don't. When it's free, you can turn it on and watch it, but the subscription stuff, yeah, it's for the birds. Okay, let me present this video. Oh boy. Okay, so this is actually my iMovie. This is where I make my videos. So I didn't really have a lot of time to prepare this. I thought about doing this, but okay, I'm just going to play this and let's get right into it. What are you playing, iMovie? Okay, here we go. I don't know if that is sharing properly or not. I'm going to check. I have a computer running here. So I'm just going to check and make sure that that is running. Oh, come on, computer. Because I have another computer running the video, and check and make sure that that is running. I just don't know if there's a delay. Yeah, I don't think it's playing properly, this damn thing. Well, anyways, I'm not going to try to play that, but I'll have to create these into videos and put them up as recorded videos. This live stream is obviously not doing it properly. So what they were talking about is they were talking about that the Russians basically sailed by Florida, and it wasn't in the media. Nobody even knew what was going on. So if that had been a launch, nobody would have ever known. Nobody was even prepared. Should there have been an act of war? But it's just it goes to how oblivious the people are, and that's why these governments get away with everything. That's why they get away with everything. and they'll continue to get away with everything. So today's Friday. Today the market don't have to trade tomorrow, but just watching what's going on in the stock market. Again, it's everybody's complicit. It's all fun and games until it's not, and it's just a clown show, really is. And the other thing I was going to show, but I'm not going to be able to show it because the iMovie's not coming up for whatever reason. I don't know why. And I actually had a colonoscopy in Mexico City a couple weeks ago, and it was under $1,000. And what I wanted to, the reason I was going to show it because there was some pretty cool video. I'm not really into medical stuff. I would never want to be a doctor or a nurse or anything to do with medicine or dealing with people, especially sick people. No way. But I find it fascinating when you see these videos. So the doctor had a video of my colon, and it's pretty fascinating to see how intricate our bodies are. Now, whether that's by accident or grand design, I don't know. It's amazing how nature has been able to engineer this so that everything works as well as it does for as long as it does, I suppose. So, but there was so my colon was pretty clear. It's, I'll put it up in another video. And it just looks like this hollow tube with ridges in it, like a vacuum hose, and like a pinkish red. But then there was a section called, my sister told me what it was called, the villi or whatever. It's where the nutrients from the food are collected as it's going down your colon. And it was this like grains of rice, like waving, like if you ever seen an aquarium in or anything underwater that's flowing with the current. It's kind of how it looked. It's pretty cool. And it's just a reminder, the story I wanted to tell is, so I had health insurance in the United States. And then because it was just me, and I never would go to the doctors, New Hampshire had some great options for insurance like 20 years ago. You could get these catastrophic plans that you sign up for 6 months at a time. And this program I was on, it was part of Celtic Insurance. I remember it was Celtic Insurance. And it was actually fantastic because they actually wanted me to go to the doctor for an annual visit. And so they would pay every 12 months for a visit free. It included blood work, everything, not even a deductible, everything was free. And I didn't realize how much that cost till I ended up doing it for myself. And lab work alone could be $1,000 for your blood work. So anyways, when Obamacare was passed, New Hampshire had to outlaw all those type of programs. So basically, I was no longer allowed to go on a catastrophic plan like I had. I think they then limited to where you could do a catastrophic plan like 2 6-month or 3 6-month periods, and then you couldn't renew it. So it was truly just short term instead of like what I was doing, rolling it over. And so that's why, I mean, I knew it was a fraud before, but that just drove it home that it was just steering everybody into Obama's plans. You know, it's no accident that the insurance companies started making a lot more money and the care went out the window. And the care is shit in the United States now compared to what it was from what I've seen and what I experienced. Because what happened was, so I started traveling 6 months a year back in, I don't remember when, 2010, something like that. And what happened was when Obamacare passed, I don't remember what year that was, but I remember I was away. And when I came back, I had a letter saying your insurance has been discontinued, blah, blah, blah. And so I didn't sign up for Obamacare because I was out of the country at the time. And then when I finally got around to looking into it, I was informed that I could not join Obamacare, that you could only join in a 1 or 2 week window at the end of every year, I think December, end of November or in December. And you had to be there to sign up. Because I remember I had a company from my business who was doing all this for me. The insurance people handled all these different insurances for all my employees. And so I said to the woman who handled our account, I said to her, I said, listen, put it on your calendar. So this was like May or June. I said, put it on your calendar and sign me up for insurance because I want health insurance next time this thing rolls around. So I remember I was in China. I came back in like March, April, and I didn't have anything from this woman with my insurance. And I think I had asked her in China, and I didn't get the proper response, so I waited till I came back. And she's like, oh, well, you didn't contact me in December, and I told you had to sign up. And I said to her, I forget her name now. I said to her, why am I hiring you? Why am I giving you my business if you can't even execute this simple request? So I terminated them. Right within a month, they were gone, and I went to somebody else. And that's another thing is everybody. Well, stay on one topic at a time. So fast forward, I was in my 40s then, I think. I'd have to count backwards. But anyways, when it rolled around time to get a colonoscopy, one of my sisters is a doctor, and she's like, are you getting this done? And I said, oh, okay, I'll look into it. And I went around to every hospital in Manchester, New Hampshire. I went around to several doctors. I even contacted the city and the state insurance or health committees or whatever they are, asking, how do I do this? How do I do this? They're like, well, just go through your provider. And I said, I don't have health insurance. You don't have health insurance? Who doesn't have health insurance? Everybody has health insurance. I don't have health insurance. Well, then we can't help you. I said, so what? You can't help me, okay? And I finally got one hospital in Manchester. I think it was Elliot. No, it was the other one on the Frenchy side. I forget the name of it already. And they said to me, yeah, we'll do a colonoscopy. I said, all right, how much is it? Oh, well, we don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Well, since you don't have insurance, it's a price to do the colonoscopy. And then if they find any polyps, it's another price. I said, well, can you give me a price if you find, give me a price for the colonoscopy and then give me a price for the polyps? Well, we don't know that. What do you mean you don't know this? I said, who doesn't have a price list for what they're selling customers? I tried this woman, I tried her boss, and I tried her boss, because there's lots of bureaucracy in government programs and hospitals, and that's why everything costs so much, because It's all forms of social welfare. So they would not give me a price. So fast forward 3 years later, I'm now in Concord. I came back from wherever I was, and I was in Concord, New Hampshire. I went to Concord Hospital, found the people who do the colonoscopies, and I got the same runaround. So then I contacted an insurance company who then gave me the same runaround, how I would have to wait till November or December. So it just, is anybody think that that's normal, that that's acceptable? It should be, the market should run these things. And anybody who's run a business wants customers. Anybody who runs a business wants to make money. That's why you're in business. And the United States has lost its way so badly in just a short period of time. In my lifetime, I've seen the fall of the United States. The United States today is not the United States. You know, when I was a kid, like 7 or 8, I used to make my own board games. And it's just something I was always good at. I remember I'd get my parents to play with me, or, you know, so they could see what I was doing. And I remember I created a game, and it was based on the Civil War. And instead of calling it the Confederates and the United States, I called it the United States. And back then, the Soviet Union was still around, which was USSR. So I called it the USA versus the USSA. And it was a Civil War game I invented. And 35 years later, it's what we are. This is the USSA, man. This is it. And yeah, I would not be surprised. And that's why I opened the video with which didn't play, I guess. I opened the video with the True News clip where they're talking about how we're basically at World War III. And the Russians have been extremely patient. And if the United States was being subjected to the mistreatment that the United States is imposing on Russia, there'd be war already. The United States would be fighting with somebody at this point. Hey, how you doing, dude? Yeah, there's a link there if you want to come on. So, did you watch that True News video I sent you? That was something. I mean, listen, I think Rick Wiles is great. And actually, Rick Wiles, he posted it. He's down in Florida. And this is a guy who's approaching 70. I think he's approaching 70 years old. He's ready to retire, set into the sun, right? Or do whatever he's going to do. He announced he's running for Congress because his local congressman announced that he was going to Congress in his Israeli uniform, his IDF uniform. And he heard this on the news, and he opened up his phone to see. He was thinking to himself, what idiot congressman is going to show up in a session of Congress in a foreign army's uniform? And he opened the phone and he goes, oh my God, that's our idiot. It was his district's congressperson. And he said, I've got to run against this guy. This guy's got to go. And I had some other videos queued up of executions from France and from other places. I think it's got to go to that point, folks. Get your swords ready. Get your guillotines ready. Deagle 2025. I don't know how they did it, but they forecast a U.S. population of, I think, 89 million in 2025. And it's truly a shit show. Truly a shit show. So, but okay, well, I've been on 20 minutes or so. 25 minutes. And since I can't get these videos going, and I didn't upload them, and that's why I'm on this stupid computer instead of the other one. So if anybody wants to come on, the link's in the chat. Just click on that link, have headphones or earplugs, and so that there's no reverb. And if anybody has anything they want to discuss, otherwise, if not, then I will be on my way. So I think I've said everything I want to say, because sitting here talking to myself doesn't do me any good. So I will give it another minute. Obviously, I'm not Russian. And, when I was growing up with the Soviet Union, I didn't hate them. I didn't consider them the evil empire like everybody did. I really didn't understand. Yeah, I started out with that, Dan. I tried to show a video that I had sent you, but it wasn't, I don't think it showed. So I'll have to put a link in afterwards. Yeah. I have zero confidence in my fellow citizens. Zero confidence. I do not believe that the citizens of the United States will choose to take the pain that is required to take this government down and to reorganize back to basically hit the reset button, basically blow everything up and reset it to zero. Going back to the original Constitution, these books of laws that have been accumulated to benefit corporations and the people with all the money, they all go into the furnace. All these laws go out the window. You only need the law of the golden rule, right? Treat others as you want to be treated. And the bottom line is the Constitution pushes most of the responsibility for government down to the state and local level and onto personal responsibility. That is called true freedom. When you, as a man, have to decide how you are going to live your life. You are not looking to the government. You are not looking to anybody else to live your life for you. You live and die on your own decisions. That's how life was for thousands and thousands of years. It was like those nature channels where a zebra pops out a baby and there's the lion standing there. And that was life. Spartans left their useless members of society when they're born on the rocks to be eaten by the seagulls. Life is cruel, and there's no way around that. And society, when it's a community of people at the local level who give a shit, then it matters. When it's a collection of people who just are sucking off the tit, then they don't give a shit about anybody else. And that's what's happened in the United States. It's now a win-lose. I win, you lose. Too bad, so sad, I'm great, you're a bum. There's no such thing as win-win anymore. There's no such thing as, like this guy, Roaring Kitty. Hey, Keith Gill, God bless you, my friend. You're another masshole just like me. And the bottom line is, you got lucky. Let me rephrase that. You had incredible balls of steel to do what you did several years ago. I wouldn't have had those balls of steel to hold on. I would have cashed out at the 11 million. That would have been enough for me. But you turned it into what, 40, 50 million? But my friend, as talented as you are, as smart as you are, as successful as you have been in these trades, sometimes there's luck involved. And sometimes there's a saying about going to the well more than once. You know, you take your chances. And how much is enough? So this guy, Keith Gill, he bought, this is amazing, he bought 120,000 call options, paid almost $6 a piece. So he paid $800,000, we'll say, for options that are expiring next Friday, June 21st, $21 call options on GameStop. And GameStop at the time, I'm shocked that he paid $5 because GameStop, I think, was $10. I would have thought he could have gotten them for 10 cents. But anyways, that's beside the point. He also, I think, bought $5 million. He had $5 million in shares as well, which a lot of the pros are like, what's he doing? He's buying shares and buying calls? What, usually, that's not how you do it. So maybe he's not a professional, and maybe he got lucky. But here's the thing. Last week, he made a public appearance on video for the first time in several years since that movie came out about him. And there is speculation as to why he was doing this video. And I won't go through them all because they were all wrong. So this guy was up on just the calls. He was up so he paid $800,000. He was up $600 million. I don't remember when I calculated if that was the shares and the options, but we'll just say $500 million, $500 million. So you're looking in your account. You open up your account and you're like, hey, I'm up $500 million. And you don't say, maybe I should take something off the table. You don't say, you don't get on your knees and say, thank you, God. My ship's come in. At what point what bulls and bears, pigs get slaughtered. So when he did that video, he was on the video about an hour, 45 minutes an hour, and the stock price started at like 40, and I think it was at like 28 when he was done. And he had his account in the window, and it's rolling back negative. And by the end of the video, he had lost $250 million in the day. I don't know. Anybody else think there's something wrong with that story? But that's just one thing. There's so many issues with our country. I mean, real serious issues. And, nobody thinks this is coming. Nobody believes that the United States is just going to collapse. I don't know how many people know the story of how the Soviet Union ended, but the long story short, the Russian troops were ordered to open up on the population, and the troops refused. They said, no, we're not shooting Russians. And so that was when the leadership realized it was over, and that's when it fell apart. And that's not going to happen in the United States. If somebody gives an order to shoot, there'll be Kent State all over again. Guaranteed. I think we can see in our military and we can see in our police And anybody in any positions of authority, they're not going to do the right thing. I don't know what happened to the United States when we used to be the beacon on the hill, when we were the example the rest of the world followed. Was that always a facade? Was it always a lie? I always believed it when I was young. I mean, of course, I was a young kid. I mean, I was stupid enough to actually volunteer for the military. If I had children today and they tried to do that, I would be like, I'd let them do what they wanted to do, but I'd make sure that they understood how big of a mistake they were making. And I actually have a nephew who actually signed up. I don't want to give his story away, but yeah. How you doing, El Nino? Yeah. It's always a question of when, right? I mean, I think of, like maybe it will be after we're dead. And the people who didn't worry about it benefited. And, I don't sit here worrying about it, but I don't spend, only when I talk about it on these programs do I really think about it. But I do think about how absurd it's become, and about how this is why I think young people today are so angry and distracted. And I think that they realize that it's, as George Carlin says, the American dream. They call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe in it. And I think the young people understand that the improvement of the economic status of each generation. I mean, you can just see it in our infrastructure. The story about the healthcare I told, you can see it in our healthcare. It's absolutely disgusting to me that people would wave a Ukrainian flag as they're a member of Congress for the United States of America, and they're waving a foreign flag in the most sacred place of government. Hello, I'm a treasonous bastard. My loyalties are not for you. I mean, what do you need to see, people? I mean, look around. I mean, it took 200, if I remember correctly, it took 200 years to accumulate $1 trillion of national debt in the United States. And I think we're approaching 40 trillion at this point. This year we'll be approaching 40 trillion, 35, 40 trillion. What's a trillion? I think every 90 days it adds another trillion to the debt. So what took 200 years, now we do in 90 days? What are we doing? And I said it before, and what we're doing to Julian Assange, I mean, come on. I mean, go down the list. Go down the list. It's truly, truly disgusting what we're allowing. Gerald Celente, who is, I think, a national treasure. And when I first started following Gerald Celente, he was all prim and proper, you know. And over the last couple of years, he has gotten so frustrated and worn out that he's just lost respect for the citizenry. And so he's turned to swearing and having these outbursts on his videos more frequently than he used to, because I think he's trying everything he can to wake people up. And he has peace rallies, And every time he has a peace rally, I'm out of the country. There was one time a couple of years ago where I was in the country, I was leaving the country the day after, and I contemplated how I would get to New York to see him, and then get to Boston for 5 a.m. the next morning to catch my plane. And I decided that there was no way I could get it done. And he says he's in this small little town in New York. He wants to get 1 million people. But he's got Judge Napolitano, Scott Ritter, and other people who are going to that. I'm contemplating flying back to the US just for that, just to give him my support. Because at some point, the other thing is obviously I'm not in the United States. And I've covered why before. I mean, I'm in Mexico for the weather, because the weather's here is so great. And it's not so far from the US. So we'll see. I may come back for that. We'll see. And I have been thinking about, boy, there's a couple things running through my head on which I want to talk. I want to talk about the medical insurance thing again. And I also want to talk about the Gong Show losers. I remember when I was about to basically go down to deploy, and we were out at the IHOP, me, Dan, Todd. I don't know if Tom was, I think there was 4 or 5 of us. And I remember Dan's friend Todd looked at me, this was like 2 or 3 in the morning after a night of partying at the bars in Boston. And he's like, "What are you thinking, man?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Who joins the military?" You know, obviously most of our, like people my age, most of our fathers were in the military. It's just what people did. And especially when they had the GI Bill, which paid for college. That's how so many people ended up getting college degrees, because it was paid for by the government. So I said to him, I said, well, I believe in, I don't even remember what I said, but I'm sure it was like, well, I think it's important to blah, 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 whatever. I thought I was doing a good thing for the country. And he's like, look around, Dave. And we're looking around, this is all the people coming from the bars. They go to the IHOP and grab breakfast, all these young 20-somethings. He's like, "Do you really want to die for these Gong Show losers?" And Dan and I laugh about it still today. This was 40 years ago, 35, 40 years ago. And it's truer today than it was then. We truly are a country of Gong Show losers. Da-na, da-na, gong. And I feel bad for anybody who's dying for this country today, because what are they dying for? What are they dying for? Are they dying for trans rights? You know, do you think the guys who landed on Omaha Beach, I mean, and I hate to pick on them, but I mean, the bottom line is live and let live, whatever. But I mean, I'm not pushing things in your face. Don't push yours in mine. And it's very simple. You know, people want to marry whoever they want to marry. That's fine. But don't expect my kids. Don't teach it to my kids. Don't teach it. You know, it's a deviance, right? You don't teach what is 5% of the population is normal, right? Because it's not normal. 95% of the population experiences is normal, typical, right? Not saying right, not saying wrong. You're born how you're born, okay? But also, we've allowed, we have turned into the most gullible, stupidest society as well. I mean, we allow the government to tell us any story they want, to get away. I mean, Congress and the president, they're immune. These drug companies, they're immune from killing people. Look at the actions. Judge our country by its actions. And it's been bad. It's been bad for longer than all of us have been alive. All of us. Unless you're 200 years old. So, okay. So anybody want to come on? This is it. Final call. There's in the comments, in the chat section, there's I'll post it one more time here. Oh. What was that, El Nino? Yeah, I also never say Google. Just one piece of advice. Say search engine. Don't give those assholes any more power than they already have. Okay. Okay, I'll post it one more time. So there's the link. Come on, join me in the video if you'd like. Let me see, just go by. I haven't been paying attention to the comments. I apologize. Let me go through. And this is where it's good to have a moderator, because these screens, Louie, are you still there? If you're there, then why don't you come on? I haven't talked to you yet. In fact, I don't think I've seen a comment from you in months. Are you still in California, or are you in Mexico now? Dan, if you're there, come on, buddy. You can come on. I haven't talked to you in a while either. And El Nino, you're more than welcome to come on as well if you'd like. But we'll keep it a little bit. We're not going to go 4 hours. Okay. Yeah, I mean, for anybody who's traveled outside the United States to second and third world countries, that is what the rest of the world is like. And that, you hear about the leveling of water. I mean, most things tend to find averages. Like when you see stocks and whatever, things tend to come back and settle out when they tend to level out. So Africa, the Philippines, other places, I mean, all of these third world countries, all of these BRIC countries, they're going to be going like this, and we're going to be coming down like this, and it's going to get close to parity at some point. And Ross Perot warned about this back in the 91, when he was running for, 91, when he was running for president. He was at the debate with Papa Bush and Clinton. And Bush was president, Clinton was governor of Arkansas, and Perot was businessman out of Texas. And that's where he had the great line, if you approve NAFTA, all you hear is giant sucking sound, and that's all the jobs leaving the country. So I asked some experts, at one point, will the jobs come back to the U.S.? And they said, well, when the rate of pay in the U.S. gets down to about $6 an hour, that's when the jobs will start coming back. So Ross Perot already gave you the answer. I mean, we have people who have given us the information. I see El Nino. Just hold on one second, buddy. And George Carlin, Smedley Butler, Eisenhower, Bill Cooper, George Washington. So many people in the past have warned this country, and we haven't listened. Instead, what we do is we focus on our kids. We think our kids are the most important thing in the universe. And as long as our kids are okay, well, who cares about anything else? And I could tell you stories, and I've told some of the stories before about the scumbags I had to deal with in my business. And they didn't care what they did as long as they got the money. They didn't care what the damage was. Okay. So, well, Nino, you're on.
Hey, man.
Well, you're in bed?
Kind of, yeah. I
What
just
time is it there?
what?
What time is it there?
Actually, it's like scary. It's like 2:22 a.m. 2:22. Now it's 3. Just change.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. Yeah, that's early for you. So,
n- not really. Like I'm actually I'm not even at home. I drove like slightly over 200 miles today. We took kind of like
what
a
are you in a
family.
hotel?
No, it's kind of like big resort. Made out of different types of mobile houses and caravans, if it makes sense.
Well, you know what I wanted to do in the UK and Ireland, and I had a plan. This
Mm.
is the subtitle of my book is "Life is What Happens When You're Making Other Plans." So my plan was to buy an RV in England or Ireland and take
Yeah,
several years and drive around England, Ireland in my RV, and then take it across to Europe and drive it all the way to China.
preferably, if you're planning on doing that, do that in the countryside, not in the
Oh no,
major
no,
metro.
no! I was planning on doing this 10 years ago.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying.
Today, I wouldn't do it. No way. The world has changed for the worse in
Yeah,
almost every way possible. In
yeah,
almost every way possible. And people are like, yeah, look at the technology. Look at how technology has technology really made our lives that much better? So now I can pick up and call somebody, whereas I used to have to pull over and go to a payphone. Really? I'd rather have the world the way it used to be, man.
but to some degree, I agree with most of what you say. Technology hasn't made our life that much better. I mean, it did made it a bit more convenient and things that
Well,
were out of.
it eliminated like instead of having three people do green sheets, you have a computer do it now. You know,
True,
doing your
but
bookkeeping.
yeah, but if you can recall a previous conversation of ours, we mentioned the fact that technology bring with it a lot of conveniency and to some degree also laziness, but it's also attract a lot of bad bugs with it. I mean, look nowadays like it's like those TV series or those movies of the Resident Evil or the Walking Dead. Everybody's like they're walking in the street. They're like on their phone and they're zigging, zagging, sifting through life, not even paying attention that a semi trailer coming down from the left side can
Yeah.
mow them.
Well, it happens to me even in Mexico, it happened. China, where if I'm on the sidewalk long enough, somebody walks into me.
Yeah,
They're expecting you to move for them. They expect you to move for them.
yeah, that's what happens. That's kind of like the zombie nation effect. I think. I don't
Yeah.
know. Don't wanna, but
And that affects your brain, man. All that stuff. When I
definitely.
see somebody putting a cell phone in like a little baby's hands to occupy it so that they don't have to entertain their baby or teach their baby, or they just want their baby gone away from them, you know, that's doing the kid damage. You know?
True. And for my everlasting shame, I did it partially by myself, but most of the time was my wife and my mother-in-law who used certain, tablets of a certain big company in order to not get rid of the alleged headache of the children, but to distract them so they can get them to eat. I mean, like what? Like basically like like when they were newborn babies and toddlers and growing up until the age of 2, 3,
Yeah,
and
well,
that
people
got
use the TV, now they just use a cell phone.
yeah, but now they got hooked on it so badly that I had to be um
Well, it is addictive. It gives you dopamine, supposedly.
true. Yes, true, but now in their eyes I'm being perceived as
Evil
the bad
daddy. Yeah.
no bad daddy or strict daddy
Yep.
when I'm actually trying to be the responsible adult in the
Yep.
room,
I've
trying
seen
to
this
see.
happen with family and friends where they're working all the time. They come back and their partner isn't holding up their responsibility to discipline the children. And now they come home, they're there for a very brief period, and now they're like, now I got to be the bad guy. So the short time I'm home, I've got to be bad dad.
Yeah, but
And so
I
sometimes
don't.
they're like, frig it, I'm not going to do it. So they let the kids do whatever they want. Like Bill Cosby said, Dad is great, giving us chocolate cake.
Well, I'm not sure he's a good example of anything
Well,
considering history, but yeah, I know.
this was back during his heyday. Bill
I know.
Cosby,
I
I'll
know.
tell you, I've seen him live a couple times, and he's one of the few. Him and George Carlin. I never saw Richard Pryor live, but I saw Carlin a couple times, and I saw Cosby a couple times. And those guys are so they are pros, man. They are so good, so good
Yeah,
because they get you to think of these social issues,
yeah,
but in the form of comedy. That's what Carlin should be taught in high school, man. Just he these social issues and issues about government. I mean, hello, he's not saying it. Yeah, he's saying it to get a laugh and to get paid, but he's really just so upset. His way of trying to help the country is by trying to pop a seed in your brain through comedy. So I don't know. I don't know. It's I think a lot of people are similar to us, Elishay, from the standpoint that they wish there was something that they could do to help the country. But I think a lot of people are at the point where it's over, man. There's nothing I can do.
and to the most part, you'll be completely on point and right. Listen, they managed to literally sack 3 to 4 generations, arguably even more. Um, and there's no end in sight. And the thing is, eventually, like, it's not just my belief, but it's also some of the indicators that goes to show that the powers and the efforts at B, they will eventually fail, but not without creating some sort of wreckage along the way. That's what I think. I mean, um, eventually they'll probably, you know, they'll leave a trail of destruction in their wake. Um,
Well, if
because
these people truly believe, see this, you and I don't think like these people, right?
no,
It's a different. I mean, these people, they think completely different. It's like talking to these people on Wall Street. They think completely differently. I believe that one of the variables we're not factoring based on the comments that I'm hearing is I think a high percentage of these groups believe that a nuclear war or a major world war is what is needed right now because number one, remember last time we talked, you said that the amount of people who died in World War II was like almost 200 million, right?
no. I said like over 120 point something million, but yeah,
Okay,
not too.
well, over 100 million. A lot of
It's
people. back then, the world population was what? Like, what was it, like 4 billion people, 3 billion?
Something along the 4, maybe 5, but yeah, basically half of what
So
it is
you're
today.
talking like 2 or 3% of the world population, you know, a high percentage of population just went sayonara, right? Dead
Yeah.
in those countries. Because, I mean, think about it. I mean, you know, so if they're thinking, okay, at the end of World War II, we were sitting on top on the throne, and we had all these useless people who were eliminated. And so they think we've got the bunkers. We can go down there for 10 or 20 years. I mean, look at Hiroshima. Hiroshima was nuked. It's a thriving city now. So the rest of the world will be nuked. In 10, 20 years, we'll come out of the bunkers and we'll start over with a population of 500 million, billion people.
Could be, but I can give you, like, for example, earlier on, you mentioned before I hopped on, when I just said hello on the live chat, you mentioned, I feel sorry for whoever gonna enlisted to fight for this country, or any country for that matter, not just for the United States, but
Oh yeah, like these Ukrainians. It breaks my heart seeing these people.
Ukraine, Israel, Iraq, Iran. It's all the same, and it's all coming up. The thing is, I encourage you. I have a lot of information about this, but I don't have a lot of access to the actual physical copies, or maybe um, you know a lot of exposure to the authenticated copies of the documents themselves. But if you can get your hands on some of the letters and or diaries of soldiers who fought in World War II, and you'll see their not just what they wrote, letters to their family back at home, whether if it's going to be France, Spain, United States, Britain, it doesn't really matter. Or even um, at times when there was ceasefire on the borderline, there is documentations of captain to captain, major to major, from opposing sides of the battlefield, and even the soldiers stop the fighting and start playing soccer or
Yeah, well,
exchanging.
that was a famous story from World War One.
No, not just one, also two.
Yeah.
I'm talking about certain fronts that when there were ceasefires, or again, just the
Well, I
pause
can
of the.
guarantee you that didn't happen in the Pacific campaign.
No, not in.
Completely different campaign.
Yeah, that's the problem with those caravans. There's too many wasps coming in through God knows where. Sorry about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And anyway,
So what was your point? Because I don't want this to turn into like an hour-long dialogue down on this. What's the point on this?
if at any point you feel like you want to cut it short because you got something to do, just let me know and we'll continue
No,
some
no,
other
no.
time.
I just want to be concise and to the point.
So what I'm saying is that, like, if you review the sequence of events, basically at pause or at ceasefires or at certain fronts, when captains,
Yeah, you
majors,
mentioned
so,
that.
and the soldiers, it came to a point when they exchanged letters, put the weapons down, took off the uniform, started playing soccer,
I don't think
stuff.
you would have seen that in the Russians and the Germans.
No, I'm not. Again, I'm not
Yeah,
specific
yeah,
cherry picking.
yeah. I
I'm
understand. I understand what you're saying, but
what I'm
in general, I don't think you'd be seeing that with Hamas in Israel today or Ukraine and Russia.
or any other front in the world, even in the Darfur, in the Congo region. My main point is that the powers that be, uh, since then until this very day, hold on, what do you mean that in this specific area, this specific region, or this specific line, they stopped fighting? They were so arrogant in their way of thinking, because you just mentioned they think very differently than you and I do.
Yeah.
And they came up, if we tell to those servients, those plebs, those peasants to go and fight and die, they'll go and fight and die, and then they'll just send a higher up commanders like a lieutenant colonel, like a bulldog into the battlefield. What the fuck are you guys doing? Keep shooting at each other.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's no doubt about that. And if we bring that to today, the problem today is who in the United States and who in the UK and who in France and who in Germany is going to the front. There's nobody.
Even if there is, it's mainly mercenaries or people who have basically nothing to lose. Yes. Or just ignorant, stupid people who actually believe in one flag or another, or nationalism, and thinking that killing another human being in another part of the world will serve their purpose individually or as a nation. I just think we need to stop all this shit. I'm not saying, okay, well, maybe no more borders. It's a bit too much of a commie way of thinking, and I don't know. But just why can't we just, as nations, as tribes, different types of whatever system of belief, way of thinking, just exchange of ideas, technology, trade with each other. I got to tell you, like, there's so many not fully explored uh, fields of trade, that there's more money in that than uh, way more than death machines and death merchant and weaponry and even drugs for that matter. Did you know that if you take one, I don't know, like let's say if you pick a nation that is the land is very fruitful and bountiful and everything, and you take like something like 8,000, 10,000 acres, and you grow like, let's say, not just fruits and vegetable, but let's say coffee beans, like, and you export just that specific nation, like let's take it Ukraine, which is one of the main exporters of wheat and grain to the entire Western Europe,
Yeah, to
Central.
Africa, Middle East. Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, if they focus on, let's say, coffee beans and certain types of that, and other nations, the trade will be so magnificent that people will just never get bored, and they'll
Well,
just
no,
improve.
Gerald Celente said it best. Is if Ukraine or Iraq, if their primary commodity was broccoli, we wouldn't be fighting these wars. They have
100%
oil, they have minerals, they have something that the big tech boys or the economies need to operate. And the problem is the world is satanic. The world is run by the devil. I hate to break it down to that simple, but mankind has lost its way in terms of, man-made churches does not equal God. Okay? The Catholic Church and the Pope are not God.
I know that I mentioned it in previous conversation. I
I'm
told
not
you.
talking about you. I'm talking about the world. I'm talking the world. The world. So that when the world sees the Catholic priests raping little boys, and they leave the church and say there mustn't be a God. Well, the evil is allowed on earth because we allow it to happen, and
Yeah.
and everything going wrong in the world today is because we as citizens have allowed this to happen. And our citizenry wants it. They want these people in Gaza, in Iraq, wherever, they want them dead because they feel safer. They want their oil. Trump came out, said, "Hey, yeah, we're gonna basically take your oil, Syria. Iraq, we're taking your oil."
Yeah.
He was
Well,
honest. Or, George Bush came out. I have it on my website on one of the videos. George Bush was asked a question about peace. And he said, he kind of bumbled over his words, and he goes, let me put it this way. Money trumps peace sometimes. He goes, commercial interests are very powerful. And they want their pound of flesh. They want their money.
You know,
So,
are you familiar with Professor Robert Moriarty, aka Bob Moriarty?
the name's familiar. What does he say?
He's a naval aviator. He fought in Vietnam. He also wrote 123 Energy, 123 Gold, a lot of other books. Some of them are on Amazon. I think next to yours. I don't know if it's the same category or level. Either my main point, he said, like, in a general sense, I know it's like kind of like a sidebar, but he said money could be rocks, money could be seashells, money could be salt. Money could be something that two people, or alternatively two groups, agree upon that it's money. Unfortunately, we've been duped and conned to believe that funny money, monopoly money, monkey money, just papers with figures on them, with adding zeros upon zeros of them, whether if it's a form of cash in hand or treasury bills or treasury bonds or money. And people will literally slit each other's throat for that. And again, when I mentioned earlier, I'm not a self-centered SOB. I was just trying to say that, like in previous conversation when we used to talk, I used to tell you, and you agreed with me. You said it also in a different phrase, but basically, I never had a problem with God. I owe God prayers and awe and respect. He's God Almighty. That there's no way other words to describe his abilities to, in a blink of an eye, to either sweep everything, erase everything, restart everything, or just make everything calm. And also at the same breath, now we reach to a point nowadays that the devil himself is dancing in people's face, but people still willfully, knowingly, and I don't know, from some sort of insane reason, choose to remain.
well, I think
Uh,
they're ignorant. I don't think they're taught about it, and I don't think they find it. They don't look into it, and they don't even. A lot of them don't even realize what they're doing. They're going on visceral reactions, El Nino. Visceral
true,
reactions. If it
true, but
feels good, if it's hedonism almost, if it feels good, like when I was a young kid,
mm,
okay, people lived in 1,500 square foot homes, whole families, 1,200-foot home, like a 100-meter home, 100-square-meter home in the United States was the average size home.
yeah,
And you'd have a family of 4 or 5 in that home. There'd be
I know.
one car in the driveway. Maybe you'd have a second car, but most people have one car for the father.
Yeah, I'm
But
familiar with the concept,
and
whether if it's a
yeah,
house or
and so
uh,
what I'm saying is was life terrible back then? I mean, when my father grew up in Boston, he was they lived in a 3-decker, and his grandparents lived on the first floor. His family lived on the second floor, and his aunts, uncles, and their family lived on the third floor. That's how life was back then.
I know, I know.
And so, and so, yeah, I mean, in some ways, life is more convenient today, more comfortable. I guess comfort. I guess comfort is the word of the century. Things are much more comfortable today. We have
did
Netflix on demand.
didn't you hear the recent terminology since the pre-planned scamdemic in 2020, that like human beings are now might be in necessity, that like allegedly experts are saying that like through new research. I'd like to see that research and who actually initiated it. That basically, because in our nature we are mammals, but we're also predators. We got a predatorial nature as well, which I agree to some degree. But he said we also need to kind of like get into a mode of hibernation, kind of like the bear, the winter sleep, hibernation or a cocoon stage in order to evolve, as they were propagating the entire BS with the, you know,
I don't
the
even understand what that means. A cocoon state, what? You mean lock us in an apartment or give us a drug and put us to sleep?
yeah, something like that, basically to negative gene therapy plus
You
locking
know,
you in.
go in a cave with the bears and come out in 6 months?
That's kind of like the analogy, the comparison, like the bear is going to a cave for 4 or 6 months of the fall and the winter. That's why they consume a lot of food during the spring and the summer. The thing is that like they came up with this insane idea, and there's actually
Well,
idiots.
you know, here's the problem is it, and you know this already. And I'm not addressing this to you, so you don't need to fire back at me. I already know this, okay? Because I know you
Mhm.
do. But it comes down to the fiat system, okay?
Yeah,
Because what happens is you have debased money to where money or currencies have, like, money has no value today. That's why human life has no value today. Nothing, our time is zero interest rates. Our time has no value today. Okay. And so it's uh, nothing is is
nothing. You're right. You're correct. Nothing has value today. Even our moral and religious values has no value today in the eyes of the vast majority of society worldwide. Well, obviously, some nations are more than others, but yeah, you're correct. You're 100% right. And
so when there's this much money floating around the world, bad things happen. Bad things happen. Okay. Not just asset prices go through the roof and people think that they're millionaires when they're not. And but you allow people to take actions because, okay, if I'm running a business and I work my ass off and I get the business successful, and now money's rolling in hand over fist, and they're like, hey, this is going to cost $10,000. When I started, if something cost $10,000, what? $10,000? It better be worth it. But when you have so much money rolling in, yeah,
Mhm.
10 grand here, 10 grand there, you lose your appreciation for how much hard work and sacrifice and a value that had. And so it basically it it loses its value. And that's where things start coming off the rails. And that's why we have government on top of government on top of government, because government, people don't realize this. Government has no value. Government creates no value in our system. They only take. Government has to rob money from you to pay itself or to pay whatever it's doing. So you have that built-in inefficiency. So when you see government throwing around trillions of dollars, you don't feel that. That's kind of like a cruise missile. You don't know you're dead yet, but you're dead. You're
Well,
dead. And all this debt, we're dead, folks. We are dead. It's just a question of when. It's like the Titanic analogy I use. Nothing was saving that ship. And it's got to go back to the point where when you earn a dollar, that dollar is valuable to you. You're not going to waste that dollar. You had to work for that dollar in some capacity. It didn't just print it for their buddies and say, hey, Nancy, buy Apple. And it goes up 20 bucks in a day and you make, or this Hello Kitty I was talking about. He was up $500 million, El Nino. $500 million. And he's sitting there, oh, life is great. And his account's going negative, negative, negative. And he played the fool for 45 minutes and he lost $250 million in those 45 minutes. What in the F is going on?
Oh, well, whole hell is breaking loose in every possible front imaginable, and it's and you're right. Time is our most valuable asset, and we should be as much as productive, efficient, and proficient with it. But unfortunately, right now we're getting even that ability is being seized away from us. The question is, um how do we respond to that? How do we retaliate? Let's be more honest. How do we retaliate with that kind of behavior?
No,
And
well, I've addressed this before. This is just my opinion. Could I be wrong? Yes, but I don't think I am because I've thought about this for a long time.
sure.
I'll say that you may or may not have heard me say this. When I bought my house in New Hampshire, there were 90 trees, 60 trees, 90 feet tall.
Yeah.
Couldn't save them. I had to cut them all down, dig out the roots, all that. Basically had to blow it up and start from scratch. And that's where we have to, because we've got big corporations like Google, Apple, Nvidia, Tesla, all these behemoths who are running the world right now. You have Israeli lobbies. If you heard the Thomas Massey interview with Tucker Carlson, we have lobbyists, and anybody who isn't brain dead should already know this. Lobbyists run our government, right? Our politicians don't respond to you, they respond to whoever's paying them.
Yeah.
You know, somebody said a long time ago, I forget, it might have been George Carlin, some comedian said, we should require the politicians to wear jackets like the race car drivers do with all their sponsors on their jackets. So at least you know who's buying and paying these dudes.
Yeah, it was George Carlin,
Was
by the
it?
way.
Was,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was one of his one of
There's
in one
no
of his
transparency in our world anymore. There's no transparency. There's only, when you try to get transparency, people try to shut you down by saying, what do you want? It becomes this vitriol. It becomes ad hominem attacks rather than discussing the issues at hand.
the
We,
thing
we,
is the thing is what you just described and perfectly described. First of all, the definition of government is useless, is worthless, especially in the terminology of today, because government should be first and foremost very small, and live within its means if they are to lead the people they pretend to govern in a proper way. And that's why we all say it like, again, the same way or in different phrases. um Watch, like, pay attention more to what they do, less than what they say, as opposed to
if they
basically.
didn't have money, El Nino, if they didn't have money, they couldn't do anything.
Yeah, but that's my point, like most
Okay,
of them
so look at
didn't
your
even.
local level. In the United States, most towns, 50% of most towns' budget, where do you think it goes?
To their pocket or to private contractors that are like buddies with them.
Well, no, officially, where do you think it goes? Basically, it's schools, local schools.
Schools, infrastructure, disposal
No,
of
no,
garbage.
no. I'm telling you, 50. If most cities in the United States
Mm,
will have approximately half of the taxes that they collect, half of their budgets go
yeah,
towards education. And education, usually most of that budget for the education goes towards the administrators and the buildings, not towards the students. Okay? So right off the bat, and the curriculum that they're getting taught is completely useless, and it's indoctrination rather than real education.
of
So
course.
why haven't people at the local level torn that system down? Why? Because most people are single household and they need school to act as kinder care. They want to get rid of their kid for 8 hours a day. So that's what they rely on school. If
I,
school's actually returned into, something that's useful to society, you'd actually have to have parents at home taking
True.
responsibility for kids. So you can't just pump out a child, say, yeah, I'm a dad, when you don't do anything for the kid, right? It's your responsibility, not society's responsibility.
It's completely correct, but I don't remember if we mentioned it in prior conversations, or maybe we did, but it wasn't on the record. You remember that famous interview between back in the days when what's his name? Come on, that famous, lovable troublemaker. I just love him, Alex Jones. Yeah, yeah. I love him. I don't think he's a controlled opposition. I think maybe they got some dirt on him. That's why they slap him on the wrist several times.
Alex
But
Jones has some useful information. It's um, it's just he's like jazz music. I can only take like a half an hour and then I got to turn it off.
fair enough. But if you can recall back in the early days, like before the whole mess and noise around him, and they latched when they latched onto him, when he had that famous interview with Aaron Russo, the leading candidate to be the governor of
Yeah, yeah. Who's dead?
yeah, but 2 weeks after that interview, they popped him off mysteriously, miraculously.
Well, supposedly he died of prostate cancer, I think.
Yeah, I don't buy that, but either way, my main point is that if you look very closely, you'll see that, like, in his conversation with one of those satanic Rockefellers, rotten bastards, um, when they tried to recruit him and said, like, listen, we like you, you're charismatic, we'll endorse you, we'll fund you, your campaign, make your life very convenient. All you have to do is pass this, that, those, that. And they had like a proper dinner and or a few of them, and a few hours conversations here and there. And he, and Aaron expressed some concern. He said, like, but hold on, don't you think that it's kind of like wrong in so many levels, and pass this legislation or this regulation and everything? And in such a casual manner, that Rockefeller bitch um, just answered him, "What do you care? These guys, these people, these peasants, they're meant to serve. Let them serve." Just like that. Furthermore, he told them that, like, his not papa, not the father of the family at the time, the grandfather or the great grandfather, in the early 1900s, I think, alongside or slightly before the Federal Reserve was established in 1913, in December of 1913, I
That's when
think.
it was passed. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think either before or at the same time, they funded the uh, rights for women. Back then, it was called something else than the feminazis, the Karens and Kevins of today. So basically, they were behind the funding equal rights for women,
Mhm.
not because they really wanted equal rights for
No, there
women.
there are some famous stories on this, and I forget the name of the guy who was the mastermind behind all these campaigns. But there's a famous guy who ended up running all these. He ended up turning it into a marketing company and becoming. He started basically doing all these marketing campaigns to convince people, the public, what they want.
That's
But
that.
here's the thing: do you think? Let me ask you a question because I had this discussion with Gonzalo Lira. Do you think
Hmm.
that all people are equal?
Sorry.
Do you think all people are equal?
No,
No, of course not.
no.
You know somebody's a moron when they say all people are equal.
Yeah.
What is equal is the opportunity is equal, but we don't have all the same skills, the same background, the same experience, the same education. This is truly, whether it's real or not, this is why people value the United States because your hard work allowed you to do with your life what you wanted to do. That's why people came to the United States because they weren't subjugated or persecuted. They were allowed to pursue. And if you failed, you failed. I mean, companies actually used to go bankrupt. Big companies. Now government bails them out.
Yeah, I know that, and even then, it's cherry picking. Who's my
Right?
favorite?
And the banks that failed, they have a $250,000 limit. If you had $1 million in these banks that failed, you know,
You lost 25% of,
right.
yeah,
But the government, Janet Yellen and the governments came in and said, nope, we're going to fund it all. We're going to fund it all because the people whose money that was, it wasn't our money.
yeah, no, but just pump more easy money into the system in order to buy to the bigs more time. But that's also, listen, like when they did that, like why did people tend to
No,
say,
but I
go
want to make a point with this.
sure,
So
go on.
when you talk about your story about the Rockefellers, there is always going to be, for lack of a better word, a group or a class or a segment of the population who are superior to the rest of the population. It's just human nature. It's what this is what's warped, okay? The term fiduciary responsibility, you're familiar with it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, in the old days, when you let down the group, like if you're a ship on a captain and your ship, captain goes down with the ship, right? You know,
True.
if you looked out for your own interest at the expense of the group that you were supposed to be responsible for, you were probably executed.
True.
Today, they don't even get a slap on the wrist. It's encouraged to violate your oaths. And so if we recognize that we are always, it's just like the dogs, right? When you look at a pack of dogs, there's always an alpha, right?
Sure.
Humans are always going to have alphas. They always are going to have people that they look to for guidance, for help, saying, if this guy thinks, and so that's just not a get rich scheme. That, George Washington, when George Washington, after the American Revolution, he was going to go retire. And the country's like, no, 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 we want you to be the king. We want you to be King George I. He's like, I don't want to be a king. And so that's when they came up with the type of government that we have. And supposedly a famous story is some woman asked Ben Franklin after the Constitutional Convention saying, what type of government do we have? And his response, a republic if you can keep it.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember.
Yeah. And so he became president. And he served, I think he served 2 terms. And that became the model that everybody followed until FDR. And the point I'm making is George Washington didn't want to do that with his life. He stepped up and he sacrificed his life because his whole life was about service and honor. And right? And do we have those people today? I think we do, but they're not the ones who are leading us.
Yeah, but you gotta also remember, you said, like you mentioned earlier, also people like that, like they're not even getting a slap of the wrist. Slap of the wrist that they get it at the best case scenario, allegedly, and even then it's all fake because you don't know if they're really paid the fine or actually serving the time in prison, if any, and most of it is big noise and distraction.
Yeah, well, George Carlin also talked about this. He goes, the people who say it's the politician's fault, He goes, hey, folks, where the politicians come from? They come from you, they come from me. He goes, this is a society. This is the best we've got. And this is what we permit. And it comes back to, and I know people don't want to hear this, but it comes back to our rejection of God, our rejection of belief in a higher power.
True, but also take under consideration is that as a society, I'm not talking about specifically you or I or a handful of unique individuals, but the lack of will, or even call it a desire or need of free, independent, critical thinking. I mean, okay, you've been hand over with something, with some sort of a hard topic, a research, whatever it is. The least you can do, you have the moral duty of to check out if those facts, those articles, those researches, where did they came from? Are they true? I mean, if tomorrow I'm going to tell you that I don't know, oranges and tomatoes can cure every illness in you have and probably will have, heaven forbid.
Yeah, well, that's a serious problem today is reliable information.
Also, but also on the other hand, gullibility. And when you mentioned the politician, okay, they're coming from us, the public, but they're also sometimes being groomed and handpicked. And you got to remember that a lot of them did not
But if
came.
you took the money out of government, it wouldn't matter.
True, but
It wouldn't
again,
matter.
a lot of them didn't came from money. They didn't had before they got elected or selected by the powers that be. They didn't even had one penny, one nickel, one dime on their.
If the budget of the United States government was $1 trillion a year, they could not do the damage that they're doing in the world today.
$1 million for every 3 months, and that's just the principal without the interest. I mean, that's if that's not the definition of insanity, I don't know what it is.
We don't even know what the numbers are. But
No, that's just the official number. That's just the official number. That's without the other, with the multiple quadrillions of unfunded liabilities and secret kind of hush hush money debt and everything. They're essentially, they already killed us. The system has been until 2000, I believe so, until 2008, was on life support. From 2008 until now, it's been dead, but they kind of like, they leading up the stretcher with the wheels and the coffin on it with the body inside of the economy. That's kind of like the analogy I'm using to describe it. Really, really slowly. Now, there's, as the old saying go, nobody knows until everybody knows. Where you and I and a lot of others, but we're still in the minority. We know what's coming, so we do our due diligence and we prepare accordingly. But look at it this way: there's a lot of people who either don't know, ignorant, just uneducated, and again, it's not necessarily evil or stupid. They just don't know. Nobody told them, or people lied to them. Yeah, everything's fine. I think the economy is well.
let me
Or
ask you,
just
yeah, let me ask you a question. Who's responsible? Who's responsible for the decision if you get pregnant and you decide that you're going to have children that you can't afford? Who's responsible for those kids?
well, I am.
But that's not what the world thinks today. In at least the Western world. Okay. And okay, so magically they're going to get educated, they're going to get fed. But I've always said, children are like you have kids, they're like little animals, right? If you don't train them, if you don't teach them, they become big animals.
True.
So I think that's what we're seeing today is we're seeing the culmination of 50 years of no fathers in the house for a majority of households.
How many years? So, how many years?
50 years, at least 50 years.
I would argue like a little bit more, but yeah, around that area, 50,
Yeah.
50
Okay.
plus.
And here's the other thing is how many people are asking, like, have you seen the videos of Philadelphia, a section of Philadelphia called Kensington? They're these famous videos where the people looks like it's out of one of these zombie movies where the people are like so drugged. It truly looks like a staged movie, like a zombie movie.
You don't have to
And
tell me. I've been
do they
keeping
have
this.
that? Do they have those areas in London?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
My question is if you were a representative of those sections of the city or the state or the country, and a bill came up and said, we're going to vote $100 billion to Ukraine. We're going to vote $100 billion to Israel. We're going to vote $100 billion to Taiwan or Uganda or whoever. Wouldn't you say, we are not sending a dollar to these other places as long as we allow our citizens to live like this?
Exactly. That's true.
So at what point, I mean, if we're going to allow, and I mean, this is a discussion that we have to have in this country. I mean, you can't do so many things without government controlling your life, but any idiot can have a child.
I know you mentioned that in previous conversation in interviews, but the basically like we need so many. There's so many pressure on us. A license to get a weapon, a driving license in certain parts of the state, even a license for fucking fishing. God, like it used to be a hobby or
If you fish or if you hunt, you could basically face huge fines if you don't have if you didn't get that piece of paper.
Okay, and yet every moron with half a brain, and even that half is not fully functional, and every street worker, pardon my language, and every like oh my man, like and can have a child, and for that apparently there's no license. But you see what I'm trying to tell you, that like some things, I would say the minority of them are natural, good or bad. Uh, but a lot of things are by design, and people are being led by the nose. And you mentioned it earlier. I couldn't say it even better myself. You say it's all start with the education, not but at home, but also at the educational system. Now, once the educational system has been hijacked and the curriculum has been so distorted, if you've seen some of Ron Paul live broadcasts,
There's another American hero, Ron Paul.
True. And the thing is, he also constructed, along with his affiliate groups or his helps and co-hosts, new curriculums that he said that if you wish to pull out your children from a public school run by the government, here's a curriculum that gives them all the basic and advanced knowledge of genuine math, literature, history, geography. I actually went inside that link, and I clicked on it, and I download the entire, I don't know, 180 something pages of format of Word
Yeah,
or
I understand.
PDF.
He has a whole curriculum that gets away from the existing curriculums.
Basically, if you want to homeschool, if you
Homeschool your
can,
child.
exactly. So if you cannot afford the private sector, which is also not that safe nowadays, but if you cannot afford the private sector, and if you cannot, if you basically, if you
No,
can't,
no. This is where I was going to with this long story. Okay, so
sure,
when you have these people like the people in Kensington, you have these people who are having babies who have no business, and Dan gets upset at me saying, "Who am I to judge it?" Well, it's very simple. Either you can afford to have a child or you can't. If you can't afford to have a child, you can't have a child. Sorry, I know it's not fair, but life's not fair.
yeah,
Okay,
but
because this is what, no, let me finish. So this is
sure,
what happens. Okay, this forces all the bleeding hearts, and even the people who are like, well, I want to be compassionate, I want to be kind. Okay, I'll fund the government down for these social programs to help these people who are less fortunate. This is how they get you, because now the government balloons and it becomes behemoth, and it can't
But
be controlled. And this is when we lose control, because now all this money is going into these black hole programs. We have no clue where it's going. And it's kind of like these gas taxes, or these what they call sin taxes, like on cigarettes and stuff. This money, when it was earmarked, it was for these particular programs. Do you think it's really going in those programs? No, it's going into their buddies' pockets, like you said at the very beginning.
true.
And this
So
is
does
where we have to reach the
70% more of
We've
the
got
money
to
that goes to the Ukrainian and Israeli fronts? What do you think? You think
we've
that
got to blow up the government. We have to blow up the budgets back to zero. It's scary. I get it. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable and painful. And then what's going to happen is the local communities, your city, your town, your state has to then decide, how do we want to handle this for our people? And then over the course of 10, 20, 30 years, might take a generation, might take 2 generations. When people realize that, guess what? My actions, I have to be responsible for my actions. Now, if the local government wants to get involved in this, then the people have a say in it. But it used to be handled by churches and other private organizations that help their communities. It didn't put this money, it didn't take money out of your pocket, out of my pocket, whether we agreed with it or not, and said, well, too bad for you, it's going into this pot. Okay? Because it's out of control now. And it has to be basically swiped clean. It's got to be reset. And until we decide, it's like the fat guy who looks in the mirror and thinks he's still 200 pounds.
it's
Until people realize it's end game, and you have to go back to zero and start over, it's never gonna. It's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on. But you know, the boy with the putting the fingers in the holes in the dike. It's a losing game. You're fighting a
I
losing battle.
and unfortunately you're 100% right, my friend. But the thing is, the thing is, how should I put it? I mean, I can't say that I disagree with you. Besides just maybe one minor insignificant point, I can just say that, like, first of all, you're right. It's either go to those black hole social programs, but even the
Most
money
people
that
are going to disagree with me, because I have members of my own family. When I said what people in the local towns have to do is fire all your teachers, all your educators, get rid of all your school buildings. And one of my family members is like, what? Ah!
Yeah,
People have no concept that until you reset this and go back to zero, you can't rebuild it. It's gone. And
you-
you
I
have
get this.
those black budgets, you have those people sucking from the tit, and that's why are they going to give that up? Why
I
are they
got the
going to give it
same.
up?
I got the same dumb shit reactions from, let's say, family members of mine, or even friends in the social circle, and they come into me like, "Oh, come on, man, have some faith in people, have some faith in the human." I said, "No, not at this. We reached to a new high level of a boiling point, a new boiling point." And to be honest with you, again, you're saying that it's all right now, it's all out of control. I'm arguing, like, basically I'm enhancing your argument by not just confirming it and agreeing with you, and not just as an opinion. It's facts. But the thing is, I think it's been out of control since 2007, 2008, and again, the economy is already gone in that since then. They're
No, it's,
just
it's gone longer than you've been alive, Velashe. It's been gone
probably
longer than you've been.
Prob-
No,
probably
probably about it. What do
there's
you think these world wars were?
again, so that's what I'm trying to say. So if I'm saying
Let me
2000,
just say, if there's anybody listening who wants to come on and join us in the discussion, we're only going to be on another 5 or 10 minutes. So now's your chance. I've posted the link in the, what is it called? The chat. So,
gotcha.
oh boy, where am I here? So I just posted it again.
Sure.
So, because actually, I woke up this morning and I got out of bed, and I didn't wake up feeling like most mornings you wake up feeling normal. I knew something was off this morning. I get up out of bed to go to the bathroom, and I had to walk like sideways. I woke up with vertigo,
Wow.
and vertigo is just terrible,
But
terrible.
how did that happen? Did you I mean, did you do some sort of activity that brought you into
Don't
this? Did
know.
you anything?
Getting old, my friend. I'm getting old.
Oh, come on, man. I'm 40 years old. You got like what, 14, 15 years on me? Come on, man.
Those are big years.
I mean,
You know, when
it's
you
like,
hit 50, listen, I started changing. I could feel the changes. Like I injured myself um, on some workout routines when I was in my early 40s, and I damaged my arms and my shoulders, and they've never been the same. And because your body doesn't heal correctly as you get older. And
true.
and
Because of
now I'm almost 60 years old now, Elishay.
I know that. No,
Okay.
I'm
So,
just
I mean, you know, I'm writing my new book and I'm writing these characters. I mean, 60s, kind of getting up to old. And the body over time, it gets used, it gets abused, it gets injured. I mean, and I can tell you, I do not recover. I do not recover a fraction of what I used to recover. I mean, not even talking from the 20s, just from my 30s, like the way I used to travel. Um, I don't think I could travel that. I could travel that way maybe for a month, and then I'd probably have to be in bed for a month, recovering.
well,
And
listen,
and it's and a man has got to know his limitations. It's one of the best lines of any movie ever. You
it,
have to know your limitations. Now, maybe my limitations are different than yours, but at 57 years old, it's hey, it is what it is. And
well, the only thing I can add to that is that just like yes, age is a major factor, but it's also the things you have experienced in life, psychologically, mentally,
well, I'm
emotionally.
talking physically. I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
physically.
yeah. But sometimes the psychological and the emotional can affect the physical and vice versa. So I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Believe me, it's hey, we all have our battles. We all have our
ex-
battles. And
exactly.
this is where, and when I went in for, I don't know if you heard it, but I went in for a colonoscopy, and I went through the whole story about how I couldn't get it done in the United States. I had to come
Yeah,
to Mexico to get a colonoscopy, and
yeah.
it cost me less than $1,000. Whereas,
What United States is probably 3 times as much.
well, I couldn't even
Something.
get a price. But I asked some friends who had it done on their insurance, and they had copay, and I think their copay, they had to spend well over $1,000 on their copay for the.
Holy sh- So what am I paying
And
insurance?
well, yeah, well, that's why I walked through the whole thing, why I had catastrophic only. But it was a professional outfit here. It was clean. It was modern. It was all the latest. Very well done. Unfortunately, I didn't video it while I was in there. I was very impressed. And
By the way, you want to hear something funny?
yeah,
Just in relation to what you said, that like you mentioned that in Mexico, it was very clean, very aesthetic, very professional, and it works, right?
well, there are places that are the opposite of that in Mexico.
I had a follow-up physiotherapy appointment in relation to some old injury that had a chain of events from the. I'm gonna kind of like I don't know how to put it, so I'm just gonna do this like the good old days, if you remember the service days. So what I'm saying is, when I mentioned several options, not to ongoing treatment, but for a cure that I know for a fact is existing through positive gene therapy or stem cell treatment to stimulate the cells, then that major BH of a doctor, I don't know how she became a doctor of anything really. Like I wouldn't trust her to run a lemonade stand. But basically, she came up with that kind of like smirky smile, like when I mentioned countries like Mexico and Colombia and other nations, and even Thailand for that matter. When over there, you can get top-notch
Yeah, even
medical,
in China now.
exactly top-notch medical cure and or treatment or both, step after step in a very affordable price, especially nowadays when the currency wars have erupted. So she started to laugh at my face and she just referred me to a totally different doctor. And I was kind of like laughing back at her, and I said like, there's something really awfully wrong about you, aren't you? When a patient comes to you and talk to you like not just on a professional level, but also on the personal level, and you laughing in his face like you haven't traveled really much, aren't you? You haven't seen the world. You just been handed out I don't know 300 pages book that an alleged research of some sort, and you just took it as face value and made it your life mission to destroy people's life and made it miserable instead of like actually helping them, alongside your hypocritic oath as first, do no harm. Do no harm. Even if you don't want to help and make
That's a
people's
big
life better,
one.
at the very least, don't do no harm. For the very least, do no harm. Do not harm any further. So I mean, like, there's so many ethic, uh, professional, and also legal aspects that now, if I want to take to that bitch to the review board of the NHS, the National Health Service over here in England, I could have done it easily, easy, and no debate whatsoever. But you know what? It's so not worth it. You know what? She's gonna dig her own tomb one day. I already got crossed off one of the list that like basically I was undergoing to a period of time of a lot of stress and tension, which is, by the way, one of the factors that psychological stress and tension
Well,
that can.
part of it is there's so much money in the wrong hands now in medicine that's
Yeah.
linked to government. Like, for example, a friend of mine, I hadn't heard from a friend in a few days in Mexico. So I wrote to them. I said, "Hey, what's going on?" They said, "Oh, I've had the flu." I said, "Oh," I said, "Are you taking ivermectin?" And they're like, "No." I said, "Do you want me to bring you some?" And they're
Mhm.
like, they wrote back this, they copied and pasted this thing from the FDA website saying ivermectin is dangerous. And I said, there you
Sure.
go. There you go. I mean, uh, people look to the FDA as if it's something to be trusted. They still haven't learned their lesson after COVID.
You want to hear something true as broad daylight, David? True. Hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin that back
And
then,
vitamin D, and vitamin D,
and vitamin D, and C, and zinc,
and zinc, right, and zinc.
and,
Yep.
and quercetin that helps you to absorb the vast majority of it, whether if it's in a form of tablet, powder, or from nature, from from seeds or certain types of fruits and vegetables. My point is, you remember the whole debacle around what's his name,
Fauci?
Joe Joe Rogan.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. That was way
yeah,
at the beginning.
yeah, or roughly in the middle, or maybe in the beginning.
Oh,
But
it
when
was? Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't at the end of it. It was either in the beginning or in the
21,
middle.
wasn't it? 21?
Kinda, yeah, in that
Yeah.
yeah. when he took it, and he said it helped me a lot. I felt much better after getting that
Yeah.
coof, whatever it was. And they started to debunk him. It's like, are you nuts?
You
This
became a
being
pariah.
yeah, but they also said it's being used as a horse's
Horse paste or whatever. Yeah.
no horse dewormer in
Horse
the stomach.
dewormer. That's exactly what she sent back to me. She goes, why am I going to put a horse dewormer in my body? I'm like,
What a bunch of reta and you know what? The only thing you should be careful. It's not going to solve any problem that someone had or have, but it's very good in case of uh medical conditions such as the coup for underlying health issue, under related underlying health issues. Here's the thing, listen to this. The only thing you should be very careful with when it comes to hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin is the dosage, and you have to consume a lot of water with them. Why? So the kidneys and the liver can filter them better, which
well,
means
ivermectin has less side effects than hydroxychloroquine, from what I
I know.
remember.
I'm just saying, in relation to both, all you have to do is just to be careful with the dosage and consume a lot of water with it. In which case, so the
Well,
kidneys
let,
and
let
the
me just say, the Dr. Pierre Corey started a group called the FLCC, the Frontline COVID, COVID, whatever it's called.
combat.
Yeah, right. It's just FLCCC, and if you type into search engine, okay, search engine, if you type into your search engine FLCC, it will come. The top thing is them. They have, over the last 3 years, they've spent their time putting together all the information you need for all of these issues. And I actually have on my computer the the routine to take, the drugs, the dosage for your weight, all of that, so that when I start feeling a tingle in my throat, I go right on it.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't mess around, because you got to start it right away before it gets into your body.
sure. By the way,
So
colloidal silver with high dosage of ppms also is very helpful. Just FYI.
what is?
Colloidal silver.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I can tell you that story another time. My German friend down here is making it and selling it in Mexico, and
That's
he gave me a bottle and I tried it, and I tried it on a rash on my skin, and it was semi-effective, but yeah, it's interesting stuff.
yeah.
Silver pitchers. There's a lot of benefit. I've read studies where you get health benefits from drinking your water out of a silver pitcher.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
silver sterling, or alternatively, even if you take a quarter ounce or half an ounce and just put it in the water after you washed it, obviously, put it in the water, silver sterling and pure silver, let alone silver sterling, it's antibacterial. So it's kind of like a natural sanitizer filter that
yeah,
never
that's
goes.
why it's used in a lot of healthcare things.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
There you go.
and stainless steel as well in food is used as well for.
It's better, let's put it this way, it's better to preserve your water and your food and your long life shelf products in stainless steel or silver sterling than plastic, paper, or even
Yeah,
glass.
plastic. Well, that was, you could argue that back when we went away from the glass container to a plastic container, that was like kind of when our world started really going to shit. That's when everything became a dollar
Food
and
and
cents
health.
decision rather than the best interest of our health.
But do you see
Kind of
my
like how
point?
McDonald's might have been quote unquote healthy food at one point.
Could be to the beginning
Well,
also.
back when they used real ingredients, no preservatives.
Same thing could be said about Burger King, Burger Ranch, McDavid's. I mean,
Well,
like,
I
just
don't
take
know
your
about them, but McDonald's was around, 70 years ago,
sure and
or
I
whatever it
think
was, 60.
there's some small mom and pops, not franchised conglomerate. But let me tell you this, and it's just like I told you. Basically, I never
Well,
got to.
Dan and I have talked about this. Elishay, we can only do so much in our lives. Like these people, God bless these people, like Tom Massey and these other people who I'm growing my own food. I'm making my own clothes. I'm generating my own electricity. Most of us can't do that. Most of us have to rely on a society of people we can trust are going to make products that don't make us sick or don't kill us.
Well, what if I tell you that some of us, like for example, I know I'm not going to say anything out of everything, but
And by the way, Trish and Brian, big fella, if you guys want to come on, now's the time, okay? So click the link I put in there, and you'll come on and join me and Elishay.
So as I was saying, like I got a lot of those skills of growing my own food and producing to some degree some of my own energy. The only problem is that like I don't have the opportunity because I always something comes up, or I always carry a luggage, or people that uh my dependents, which are my children and their mother, and you know how it works. So sometimes uh in that particular lane, it's harder to get off the wheel as opposed to the self-sustaining and work for yourself, um, and produce. But I'm gonna tell you, long gone are the days, since I mentioned earlier in the early 1900s, that a family could have lived on, like let's say an average family of a husband, a wife, and their two children, um, and maybe a dog and a grandma in the living room or something like. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
those days when a family could survive on one paycheck are long gone.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is,
And you didn't
what
even have to have a high-powered job 50 years ago. You could be working at the Bradley's department store and afford a
you
family and a house.
you you could have been a school janitor, or you could have even been uh, I don't know, an airport baggage jockey or something like that.
I
You
have
could
them
have
in
been
my neighborhood, average people.
exactly that. But with common sense, with physical abilities, and with some set of skills that could benefit them, except not all this garbage that being pumped into the system nowadays of fake degrees of a nothing burger, like gender studies, political science, ancient Egyptian pottery, um, advancement of
Yeah, how is that going to benefit society?
not just benefit society. How is it going to land you a job when you're going to
Well, that's
realize
my
you,
point. Well, I mean, you can't get a job if it doesn't benefit somebody.
yeah, or alternatively, you're going to be very disappointed when you're going to land yourself a job that has nothing to do to the college or university degree that
Sure.
you went for.
You're
I mean,
working at Starbucks, right?
exactly. Basically, you're 30, 40 plus years old, and you just I don't know, you got even not even a bachelor, a master's at some sort of bullshit fake degree that means absolutely nothing but horseshit, and then you still
Well, you know
working
what I think it is,
job,
Elisha,
and
Elisha, it's because people, and unfortunately, I think it's this simple. People take the path of least resistance. They don't want to go to school and actually work hard. They want to party. They want to get laid. They want to do drugs. Okay? They
okay.
want it. College today isn't about education. It's about sowing your oats and having those formative years away from home, your first years.
Whatever the reason may be, okay, so you chose
So
that path.
why would you take physics where you actually have to put in 8 hours of studying a day, or mathematics or biochemistry when you can
Oh,
take African studies and just plagiarize or make something up? And,
yeah,
you know, boom, 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 right? I mean,
yeah,
who gives a shit?
yeah, something like that. Or like, even if someone does give a shit, how you exactly, what does it even mean? I don't know. Uh, uh, Advancement or encouragement of equality of people of color by means of social media. That's an actual degree nowadays. Listen to the mouthful. That's it's painful. I can send you links over links. Like it's short, sweet, and to the point of like between 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's like laughable or painful to watch. But what I'm trying to tell you is like when those bastards
Yeah,
um
it's almost like a comedy skit 50 years ago. Like, what are those English guys who did Monty Python? A Monty
yeah,
Python skit.
yeah, but the thing is that like you got to remember that like they there was many goals and targets to achieve by doing what they
It
did.
comes back to what I asked you earlier when I asked you, is everybody equal? Was
No,
everybody created equal? So you
no,
see, this is the thing. They think that by them getting these useless degrees, that they're now worthy. No, you just wasted your time and your money, and that's fine. We're all guilty at some point of our lives of wasting our time and our money. I mean, it's unfortunate, but we all do it at some point.
or even others people time and money. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's better. At least it's not mine.
that's a
Because
good.
I live in a win. I win. You lose. That's
Yeah,
the world.
yeah. Well, either way, you don't lose much because you didn't had any skin in the game. But going back to my main point, back in the obviously it started way before that, but like I think that the pivotal point when they managed to achieve many targets and many goals, and two of the main ones, or at least two of the main ones, was when they funded the Equality Act between men and women, and they started to get women in what was it, in the roaring
Oh,
20s,
oh, oh,
1920s.
oh. You mean with their right to vote, or as far as the Equal Rights Amendment of the 70s?
No. I'm talking about with the right to vote in the 1920
Oh.
when they gave them the right to vote in from not from the age of 18 like men were, or the age of 20, 21. I don't remember the full
Or
details.
no fault divorce.
Hold on. No
Yeah.
fault of war.
Yeah. Like, I just don't want this anymore.
No, but the thing is that like just basically just like little bites, just like the rats they are, they bit more and more into our freedoms and liberties and overreaching and overstepping and intervening all the way into our personal life. Now, what did they manage to achieve? When Aaron Russo had that interview with Alex Jones, so he said he's been told that story and what was the origin and what was the purpose and who conceived those ideas. Forget about who was the promoter of those programs. Forget about the puppets. I'm talking about the origin, the financier, the enablers. So it came to a point when um, they they wanted women to be equal to men and have equal rights, not just in voting. The voting part was just the start. They wanted them to go outside to work.
Yeah.
And and why was that? Not so that the woman can feel equal, whatever you can do, uh, dear husband, I can do better. Or for the very least, as your equal. No, it was all about to inflate, raise, and jack up the prices and tax the other half of the population. That's how stupid. Sorry, that's how not people that
And you also lose control of your families.
But that's my point. I'm not gonna say that's how stupid people were. Men resisted that because they said, no, your job, we might be equal in the eyes of many other categories, and we might be should be treated at the same way in the eyes of the law, man-made law. But in God's eyes or in any other way, um, we are not equal. Physically, we constructed very differently, biologically, mentally, psychologically. And that's why I always said, well, not always, but at least in the last 20 years, women are more susceptible for this shit. Like, oh, it's so cute, it's so admirable, it's so this, so, and
Listen, we can't go down this path because if you, I, I'm ending this podcast, not starting another hour because we're just going to go
um,
to, listen, write this on a notepad and remind me and we can discuss this because it goes down to like we're at peak stupidity now where we're allowing men and women to box each other and wrestle each other and swim
I'm
each
not
other.
going to that niche. I'm just gonna finalize the last thing
Yeah.
is that they also damaged severely the family core and nucleus because they caused a lot of division between men and women
No
in their
doubt
own.
about it. No doubt about it. No
That's
doubt
how
about it.
that's how
Well, they
a
convinced
cycle.
women, they convinced women that they were useless if they were at home raising the next generation. That their lives were useless and and basically they were slaves to their husband.
No, no, they were not. They were
No,
not.
that's what they convinced women to believe.
I know that's what they convinced them, but effectively, they convinced them that that's what they were. But eventually, like if I'm working and
Because
providing
that's
enough,
why women will say today. That's the problem with young women today. What
uh,
young women are so lost today because they think that they have to be men. And listen, I've had some women bosses in my career before I started my own businesses, and the women bosses I had were the worst bosses I had because they, instead of embracing their femininity, they thought that they had to behave like men. And it's foolish. It's foolish for a woman trying to act like a man.
just like it's even more foolish that for a man to try to behave like a woman.
Oh, of course, of course, of course. You can reverse it. But I haven't had a job, I haven't had a man in a role where they had to pretend to be a woman or behave like a woman. Listen, I don't want to be. It's insane. And
Yeah,
and and it's
down world. What's right is wrong. What's wrong is right. Up and down. Down is
and at
up.
what point, let's just end it on this. Since nobody's joining us, we're going to end it here. And I'll give you the
Sure.
final word, but I'll just say, um, at what point, at what point do people get off their couch? Is it going to have to? I think it's never going to happen until everything is stripped away and people finally have nothing left to lose to overthrow this government and hit the reset button. Of course,
Sure.
of course, everything will be gone. Everything will be gone. So it will be easier now because you won't be taking the gamble that you will now. I mean, I, it's going to be very painful. It's going to be very difficult for a lot of people, but it's kind of like a diet. The sooner you start it, or a journey, the sooner you start it, a journey starts with every journey starts with the first step, and we have to do it. Just do it.
I couldn't agree with you more, my friend. And but I think that there's a 50-50 chance that like, okay, once everything's stripped away and gone, yeah, people might move their asses. But I think at that point, it's gonna be too little, too late, and
Well,
I,
think if the
the
population
people,
down to 89 million people in the United States, there'll be a lot less people who are going to have a vote.
True, but also think about it this way. There's two angles to this. I'm looking at it globally, not just in the US part. But
Right.
if you want to focus on the US,
No,
uh,
we can do it either way you want.
no. Okay, fine. But I'm just saying, okay, US will be the best example as at the rate that this is going as a decaying nation. But let's put it this way. I think that you asked me at what point do I think that people will get off the couch and start moving their asses to the streets and start like take action, basically, one way or the other, legal, illegal, somewhere in the gray area. I don't know. I think when mm, uh, married people, especially with children, uh, even without children, but let alone with children, when they're going to start to wonder when their next meal is going to come from and when hunger is going to strike their stomach and their children's stomachs.
Well,
I,
that's
I
typically when revolutions happen, right? Is historically, that's when people actually revolt when they can't feed their kids.
exactly, but that again, why did I mention earlier 50-50? Because it could be what you mentioned, that everything is stripped away, and it could be when people are start to hungry, it to be too hungry, angry, desperate, the works. The thing is, I think that in either case, it might be too little too late, because don't forget that when you're hungry, tired, irritated, uh, your ability to even resist verbally or legally, um, or even use a megaphone in the middle of the street when 100,000 or 100 million people behind your back is being reduced significantly. So
Well, there is a very good movie on that topic that you just briefly described, and I've recommended people watch this before. I sat down and I showed Dan this movie. We watched two movies back to back, and one I forget what the other one was, but one of them was Soylent Green with Charlton Heston. Have you ever
mm,
seen that?
I do, but a long time ago, and I
Yeah.
don't
It's
remember.
people. I'm not going to ruin the movie, but what I will do is I will pin the comment to this video when the video is over. When this video goes, when we finish, it will allow me to go in and pin a comment. I will put a link to the movie Soylent Green that you can watch for free. Okay. So you can just click on, it will be the pinned comment.
One of those links in Put Locker, I think, and I think I
Yeah.
watched.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a very old movie, and I watched it
1972.
exactly. But it was even before my time. But I watched it eons ago, and I totally. And then when you sent it, I started to watch. 27 minutes in, and then I had to go and do something. So
Well, you should
again,
watch the whole thing because
I
that is our world, or it's going to be. It basically it talks, and actually I think it's back in 1972. I think the movie was set in like 2022 or something like that.
like it's a premonition of some sort.
And
To
the other one that I think people should watch is Logan's Run.
that one, I actually have watched. Like so,
That's a
yeah,
great movie. Great
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
But that
By the
has
way,
the mark of the beast. Okay.
yes, but also,
And
but
and
also like
also,
a bit,
population control.
and also a bit more modern-ish from the early 2000, if you can remember, with Tom Cruise, Minority Report.
Minority. Yeah, that's a good movie.
That that
I haven't seen that in 20 years, but
so I highly recommend you refresh your memory and watch this one with Tom Cruise,
right.
Minority. That's like again early 2000s. A really good movie, basically of a elite unit that's supposed to arrest people. They have this ability to get a glimpse into the
Yeah,
future.
basically you're arrested for a crime you didn't commit.
Yet, but
Right.
by do, but by arresting the people, they basically endorsing them and pushing them to be criminals, so they make
Yeah.
it happen anyway.
Well, they could do that right now in the United States. After 9/11, they came out
Mm.
with the Patriot Act, and part of the Patriot Act was the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which says all they have to do, and this is why when they call somebody in the
Right.
news a terrorist, homegrown terrorist, that's
Mm.
not an accident. If they label you a terrorist, they have given themselves the right to send in a squad to black bag you, take you to Gitmo or Romania or wherever, and you're gone. You're gone. You have no civil rights. Your rights are gone.
Yeah.
And
In
they
other
don't
words,
have to, they don't have to give you habeas corpus. They don't have to give you your phone call. They don't have to give you anything. Your
yeah.
family will be like, where'd they go? They don't even have to tell your family where you went. You'll be on a
Can I
milk carton somewhere.
can I tell you something? Even before, prior to the Patriot Act, which is nothing but the fascist manifesto, as JW used to call it. He coined the term uh, back in the days. But let me tell you something.
Who's JW?
Our mutual friend, the
Oh,
one that you,
oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I have no problem with Jim. Yeah,
No, no, I know you don't, but like kind of like the last interview was a
yeah,
bit
yeah.
bizarre.
Yeah. Well, let's not.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I know. Just forget it. Just the tone of
Okay.
voice, not really
Yeah.
one end to another. Like, uh, either way, what I'm trying to say is, um, uh, even before that, believe it or not, I'm talking about the 1940s. They used to be upon occasion. Oh, you cannot even argue throughout all the known history of mankind in the last 3-4 thousand years. There have been situations like this. Nowadays, in the modern time, they take people. They call it, what is it? An administrative warrant. You got no rights, no judge, no jury of your peers, no nothing, no phone calls,
Yep.
no lawyer. Uh, off the grid black site, and it's called rendition. Especially if you want to torture the person,
No, no, no.
you
The
can.
United States has always done that to non-U.S. citizens, but
But nowadays they do it not even to their own citizens.
no, that's what I'm saying is they can legally do it now. If it was done before, it was illegal, but it's legal now.
Because
It's
of the Exchange
legal.
of Price Act. I know,
Well, it's
but
kind of like, and it goes back to how George Carlin says, rights aren't rights if they can be taken away. They're privileges. This is why
exactly.
George Carlin should be taught in high school, so that people actually understand it's not comedy. It's actually what he was warning us has happened. Just like Smedley Butler, Eisenhower. So hey, let's leave it like this. So I have my movie that I recommend, Soylent Green. Um, LSA recommend Minority Report. Listen in the comments, folks. Please, what movie do you think people should watch? Could be an old movie, could be a new movie, could be The Matrix for some people, right? That woke up a lot of people. What
Sure.
movie do you think will really wake people up as to this is how the world really is, or this is what you should really understand about the world, so that you don't get a brick in the head? So
Yeah.
please leave your comments below with that information. I will pin the comment with the movie that I recommend. And LSA, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah. You said which movie people think that describe the current times of our life, or at least the 4 to 5 years, is best. It could be again the just like you said, the new movie, or but still, like, sometimes, it's a sort of a hitty hint, kind of like telling us the truth through fictions, or giving us hints about what they're going to do before they're going to implement it, slowly but surely. I call it SMS, and not the one you type as a text. It's slow motion slavery. That's the acronym of SMS.
What was the French Revolution was called the Black Terror, right? Black Terror?
I'm not.
I think it
I
was called
think
the Black Terror
I
because
think
they
some of
yeah.
the act committed over there were black terrors, but I don't know because
Yeah.
the French Revolution. Don't forget. Are you talking about like the
Well,
one led by the Jacobin? No.
yeah, the Jacobins. Yeah, that's when most of the executions were done. When
Yeah, but
when they heard an army was coming, that we were going to let all the prisoners out, I heard they were like executing thousands a day, trying to just get them all. It's kind of like how the Germans were at the death camp, supposedly were killing people when they
yeah, but
found out.
you gotta remember that the Jacobin in France were basically the Bolsheviks in Russia, so that was also kind of like by design. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, yeah.
Okay, amigo. All right, I gotta go. I'm out of gas.
I, I,
Uh, I will definitely. I don't know how quickly YouTube posts this because it translates from StreamYard over to YouTube, and then it processes, and then once it processes, I can leave the comment.
magical algorithms and
Yeah,
whatnot,
but
but
remind me, we should have a follow-up because there are a couple things that we're going to follow up. I would definitely like to talk about women because I think a lot of women today are really, and a lot of just young people in general today are all messed up, all messed up.
brother,
They don't know which way to go, which way is up, which way is down.
because there's no incentive anymore, and let me tell you that I'm going through it
Yeah.
right now, in the middle of
Well,
it.
listen, we should talk about this. Two guys talking about, hey, we have our opinions. The women can come on and give their opinions, but you know, the world existed. The world existed for a long time a certain way, and like we talked about, how things come to evil, equilibrium. Everything's come back when things don't work out. Well, eventually you find out they don't work. So,
True.
all right, amigo. Happy Friday,
And
or for you, happy Saturday.
respect, hermano. Take
Okay.
it.
Good talking to you, amigo. All right. Thank you
You
very much, everybody. And
take it.
thanks for joining us. And it was a good tangent. And listen, I just want to finish by saying, listen, prepare yourselves spiritually, get yourselves ready, because the bottom line is that when I went in for this colonoscopy, they put you under. So there's a small chance you don't come out. So I prepared videos for everybody, my family. I even had one on YouTube that was set to go off if I didn't make it back. And the bottom line is yeah, I'm not afraid of death itself. It's kind of sad, I guess. I don't.
But
I'm more
don't.
afraid of like getting eaten by a crocodile. I mean, something painful, or
Yeah.
you know, that's more of a fear, I think. But the bottom line is I can tell you right now, I have no problem sacrificing my life for the greater good of humanity if that's what's required. But we've got one life. We've got one life, and Dan sends me these videos of all like they do these on YouTube. They have these YouTube shorts, and they have these 1 minute videos of all these people who have died in Ukraine. There's thousands of them. This is Joe Smith. He left his 5 young kids in Utah and went to fight in Ukraine because he felt a calling. Hey Joe, your calling was those 5 kids who didn't choose to come into this world, but they needed a father, right? And you're going to Ukraine because you want to relive your 20s. What the F is going on? So
You said it best, my friend. Evil never rests, and the propaganda machine is a very well-oiled
yeah.
machine, and the war machine, and everything revolves around it.
So I don't know. I mean, you don't want to just die for nothing. But you know, I'm a human being and I have my flaws. And one of the things is I'm like, hey, Rand Paul, hey, Ron Paul, hey, Thomas Massey, hey, Donald Trump, hey, Tucker Carlson. you're expecting these people to lead the charge into change, and the change never comes.
No, I was also recommended, like, listen, don't trust any of these bastards, and don't even if listen, you can say I'm old, but not obsolete, and definitely not elderly old. With all the respect and the knowledge and life experience that you have accumulated all throughout those years, and I got much respect for that. Even if the difference between us is like 15 to 17 years, but still, it counts for something. But let me tell you something. On the one hand, you're right. Just like MLK, not Junior. If a man hasn't found something that he would die for, that he doesn't feel fit to live, Martin Luther King. I mean,
You're
he
talking the
did have,
guy from the Protestant religion.
yeah, but still, like, he had his moments. Let's put it this way.
MLK Jr. knew he was going to die. You know that.
Yeah, but he also allowed himself to be used by
Well,
the.
the night before he died, he told people he was not going to make it. He was not going to be there at the end. Now, whether he was just a speech or whether he really meant it, I don't know. I mean, listen, being a black guy in the '60s doing what he did, that took a lot of that took a lot of guts. That took a lot of courage.
True, but that's also why I'm telling you right now.
We need that type of person in our country, black, white, whatever. We need, you know what we need? We need to just send 100 million. That's ridiculous. How about a million? A million people go to Washington, D.C., sit down, don't move. I've talked about this in video. Set up like a Woodstock concert right in D.C. illegally. And if there's a million, they're not getting rid of a million of us. And we just shut that city down. Shut it
that
down.
I'm not gonna say it's unrealistic. I'm just gonna just gonna put it at that. I'm not saying 100 million, because that's gonna be almost a third of the entire
Yeah.
nation. Uh, and then you got to remember that not all the nation are like adults in full body able adults. I'm not talking about teenagers, or let alone little children or elderly people. But I would say realistically, not 100 million, but neither a million either. I would say something in between 5 to 10 million strong. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you
To
a question. If Gerald Celente changed
mm,
his tune, instead of saying, come to the four corners of New York, what if this guy actually said, my fellow Americans, I'm calling on all of you to drop everything you're doing and come to Washington, D.C., and we don't leave until we shut down the government. Do you
do you want
think,
to hear?
how quickly do you think that he'd be taken away and never seen again?
Even quickly and even more
And
easy.
DJ Parr, listen, buddy, I don't think it's bullshit. And this is what I say is I believe in Jesus Christ, I believe in God, and I believe in my salvation to him. I believe my soul will be saved, and I think that I'll be in heaven someday, or call it whatever you will. And I'm on this earth temporarily. And if I can help change this world for the better, I'm going to try. I'm not going to automatically assume that that it's impossible. And if it means that my life is forfeited for that belief, who cares? I'm 60 years old. Even if
Yeah,
I
but
was 20, I joined the military at 19. I could have been dead at 19. Because back then I believed naively, and yeah, it's still not. Listen, we have to unite, people.
same
And
here.
we're never going to agree on everything. And I'm not saying, it doesn't come down to Trump or Biden or Bush or Obama. It comes down to our country is broken, and we have to basically get rid of the criminals who are running everything now. Plain and simple.
Amen to that.
And that all comes down to the money and power, and we have none of it. Yeah, I get that, DJ. Yeah, he said you can't change the world, you can only change yourself.
Don't forget, by the way, that like there's those type of people who it's commonly said that like you only live once. I disagree with those people. I think you only die once, but you live every day all over new again. So I'm just saying, don't give away that easily. I know 19, 20, and now 60, but still, if you actually come to a point that you decide to give away that which cannot be taken back and sacrificed for the greater good, I would only say just make it count and give those
like, how
bastards
about
help.
that poor bastard Aaron Bushnell? You know him, the kid from the Air Force who
They
lit himself on fire in front of the Israeli embassy.
That's just like I have no words. I mean, like for what?
I don't. Yeah, it's you know.
To see the picture with the audio details, it's
I
horrible.
saw the video unedited, and I wanted to cry because it truly was a waste of that guy's life. And just like I don't want to waste my life, but I can tell you that our country is so broken now. It's so broken, and it's criminal. It truly is criminal. And listen, one of the reasons I got into a disagreement with Jim Willie is because he thinks the stock market is fucking great. It's so fantastic. My retirement's going up. It's criminal. It's criminal.
The thing is that on paper nowadays, everybody are millionaires with their hedge funds and their pensions and, you know, their 401k. Everybody.
It's what I talked about before. When you have money this easy, that they and listen, I like money just like I like to do what I want to do with my time, and I need money to survive. I get all that, but we need to get back to. I'm not talking about changing the world, but our country is been broken, like I said, a lot longer than we've been alive, and maybe money. This is what I told my friends in China, because I started going to China before, right when it was like starting to get really wealthy, and I'm telling them, you guys are going down the wrong path, man, going down the wrong path. But you know, when you tell a country where you know they're like asking each other 50 years ago, have you eaten? Are you starving? Like Nutrilima, have you eaten? And today, you know, so I get it. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, okay? All right. But I can tell you right now, it comes down to personal responsibility and not relying on government. Would be a much better world, much better world.
True.
In my opinion.
These
are just my opinions.
Question that you asked in relation to, like, let's say if Gerald Celente will come and say, so and so, my fellow Americans, it's time to rise up. And don't get me wrong, again, in relation to many categories, I agree with Gerald Celente 150 quadrillion %. It's just that, like, the
He's
way
a human being. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is that the guy just lost it in certain ways, and it just snapped in a way. And you know what? I get where his anger and his passionate come from. He's passionate about the subjects that he talks about, but sometimes it brings doubts the way he describes things, to think like, could it be that he's on the payroll of someone else? Because nowadays there's also
maybe
the bad.
Maybe. I mean, the bottom line is, if you're not shut down, then you have to ask that question. Why haven't you been shut down? if you have a
No,
following.
but that's not my angle. My angle is that like nowadays when there's global battle between globalists and Satanists and the loyalists, and we are the everyday regular people get caught in the middle. Um, I mean, like, how can you say those things like with a straight face, and yet, and at the same time, I mean, criticizing certain regimes like the United States of America, the United Kingdom, Israel, and other governments around the world, that's one thing. But to generalize an entire religion or ethnic group or whatever it is, just because the stupid, dumbass decision that leaders of that country or that country did, it's just downright stupid and wrong. That's what I
Yeah,
think.
I don't listen to everything. And this will definitely, I just posted 2 videos about this, us discussing this. So we don't need to revisit this.
No, no.
The bottom line is, and I agree with you, grouping everybody in a category, it's lazy. It's lazy.
Yeah.
But it comes down to, I can guarantee you, just like the United States government, the Israeli government, they're evil. They're full of people that are
There's
looking out for money interests.
That's all there is to it. And by the way, if and when he's going to say that, like apparently at one point or another, whether if it's a million march or 10 million march, my fellow Americans, etc., etc., I think that like less than 24 hours, arguably less even than 12, they're probably gonna SWAT team his ass, confiscate all his assets,
Yeah, this is
free
real. Yeah, they'll
all
move.
accounts, and probably blame him for all the bullshit they drag Trump about, and they weren't even successful about Trump. So who's Gerald Celente is supposed to Trump? They're gonna blame him with the Insurrection Act and imposing basically sedition to violence and yada yada. They're probably gonna listen. All I know that you and I can have those conversation in private or in public, and even we have to be to somewhat
And,
degree
and
be
let's say
careful.
they do take him away or they kill him. What are we going to do? What are we doing for Julian Assange? What were we doing for Gonzalo Lira?
what
Right?
what were we doing to begin with to the person who started this whole chain of events, Edward Snowden?
Yeah,
What?
Edward Snowden. What were we doing? I
an
wasn't
nat-
doing shit.
a national hero who exposed government unconstitutional government crime by the United States government, by the NSA, and affiliated three-letter agencies, an agency within an agency within an
Yeah.
agency, and a sub-agency attached to it.
And
So
Dan didn't even know about that. So I actually, in one of the videos with Dan, I show the video of the incident that you're talking about where they gunned down these reporters and covered it up.
that's unfortunate, but
And
you
that's
know,
what Assange released. All Assange did was he basically uncovered secrets that the government, and the bottom line is does anybody think it's absurd that all they have to do is say that's classified and they don't have to inform the public? There's very little in government that should be not public information. Like,
yeah,
no, can't audit the Fed, can't audit Fort Knox for the gold, can't audit this, you can't check this. Oh, that money going to Ukraine? Nope, you can't audit that. Who the F are these people to say that we have no right to this information?
and that was exactly my
Read the
point.
Constitution. This is our government.
That's exactly, but that's my point in the beginning of the conversation. It's no longer even covertly or like,
Since
oops,
9/11,
messed
since
up.
9/11, it's been out, it's been completely in your face.
Since 9/11, 2001, that was when it went to hyper mode. But arguably, it was in existence before that as well.
Yeah,
Just
Vietnam War, right? Did people really want the Vietnam War?
and
They still did it.
the first Gulf War, every time when that bastard's pants went down and he put his dingaling in the wrong hole, then
Who?
bombs used to fall over Baghdad.
Oh, Clinton?
Yeah, the
Oh,
Clintons.
yeah, that whole, I was in, like Serbia, right? Belgrade. I mean,
Mm.
that's where they blew up the Chinese embassy. Oops. We, I guess
And,
we missed.
and that and that
Right.
that retarded satanic woman who's like, we came, we saw, he died.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a
While I'm thinking about it, the other thing I will post is, well, I'll do the True News videos and I'll put them up separately because I think Rick Wiles does such a great job. And this is a guy who's been doing it, and people have told him, you're wasting your life, you're wasting your time. He's still doing it. And I don't know. I don't know. It's
I wanted to go obviously in a kind of like a pre-planned, organized, very organized on a debate with him to just
Rick
give him a
Wiles.
few, sorry?
With Rick Wiles, you
No,
wanted to
no, no,
debate him?
no, with Gerald Celente,
Oh,
while while the judge Andrew Napolitano uh is kind of like sitting between, because that's a man that I have the most high respect towards, and
oh.
I was thinking like just to let Gerald know that he's got my support, but not my
Well, you should
blood.
write to him.
Sorry,
Write to him.
I'm not sure he's gonna even like give someone like me the time of the day, but I'm just thinking that in certain point,
Well, his administrative assistant, I think her name is Jane. I've chatted with her a couple. If you call them on the phone, they'll actually answer.
fair enough. I don't even have the phone number just yet, but
Go
I'll
to their
try.
website. It's on their website. You can call them.
What, the Prince of Peace or the other one, the Trans
Yeah,
Journal?
Trends Journal. Trends
Oh, fair.
Journal. Jane is the admit. Jane, at least this is when I was back in touch. They'll. I've always gotten a reply from them, but I wasn't asking something. It was more about subscriptions and that type of thing. So,
Fair enough.
but just say, hey, just propose something to him. You know that you'd like to have. Explain exactly what we talked about in that. You're Jewish. You're a supporter of Gerald Celente. You have been for years, but this is where you'd like to have. You can phrase it your own way. And
Yeah.
hey,
The
if
only
if he's as
reason,
honorable as he claims to be, then he'll respond
fair
eventually.
enough. The only reason that I want the judge to be there is like kind of like in a segment of like 30, 40
Then
minutes to
then
kind
this is what I recommend you do. I
of,
recommend you book a ticket to the United States for September whatever, and you can meet Scott Ritter, the judge, and Gerald Celente in one place in New York on that date. And then you
yeah,
can do it right to his face.
true. And that might be one of the best suggestions that I ever got recently. The only problem is that I'm slightly dreading from those dates between August to September, because guess what? Right now, as you and I speak, they're already like 1 or 2 months ago, arguably even way back. They talking about locking us up again. Surprise, surprise. They talking about
Knocking what up?
another scam demic,
Oh,
another plan.
well, it is what it is. Um, it is
I
what
just,
it is.
what's scary about it
I
though,
wouldn't
it's
let that impact my travel decisions if you wanted to go meet Gerald Celente.
no, fair enough. You're correct about it. The only thing is that like right now, because of the pushback of back then and the further pushback of nowadays, what they planning on doing is like to release a hybrid of what is that? I know that one part is going to be Ebola, and then a mix with either smallpox
Yep, and
or
the public will
something.
buy it. The public will swallow it hook, line, sinker. All you got to do is scare people. In the United States, I forget the line. I should have written it down because I thought I'd remember it. Instead of the land of the free and the home of the brave, it was
It's the land of the free and the home of the slave.
the what?
The land of the free and the home of the slave.
Yeah, something like that. It's so perfect the way the whoever said that when I
Yeah.
heard it, because
The,
it all you got to do. I mean, the USA I believe in isn't a country of cowards. I mean, when I read these books of these guys who went out and conquered the West, I mean, the women were tougher than guys. I mean, forget about it. I mean, this is what we need, folks. We need some, and you know why I think they were so tough? Because I think a lot of them believed in God and they realized that this was a temporary way station, and so they weren't afraid of doing what was right. Now, I don't want this could really cause I mean killing people, but I mean you can take certain actions. Listen, I'm getting bonkers here. I gotta hit the hay, amigo,
no
and,
problem, man.
and you do too, because you're 7 hours ahead of me, or 9 hours, something like that.
But I've got a following up in the morning, like entertaining the. I told you it's kind of like a vacation resort just for the weekend until Sunday, and then we have to head back home inside in the evening because the following morning they got school to go back to
Yeah.
school.
Well, you look better on this video. You look like a vampire from Romania and the others because you're like in this cave with like this yellow light on you.
It's not a cave. It's actually nice. Like, look, this is
No,
the.
no, in the other videos, in your
Oh,
house. It's
well,
terrible.
kind of, yeah, but don't forget, I don't use a
Yeah,
fixated home
yeah,
computer. It's more
I
like a
get it.
laptop that keeps on
Yeah.
moving, and because I don't want the kind of like the reflection of the sunlight to come in, or even if it's nighttime, then the light posts are just basically coming through the windows.
Okay.
So
All right.
I just wanted to interrupt. Either way, have a good one.
You too. Good night. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. This
Have a good
time,
one.
this time we really are leaving.
Take care, my
Okay,
friend.
pal. See you later.
Yeah,
Bye now.
bye.